Hey, Rachel. I'm excited to talk about this week's episode.
I know. It was so awesome. We got to talk about something other than elementary students for a change.
Right. We had an expert on the 3 to 6 ages with us, Nia Seale, a primary trainer, met with us and talked about that age children.
Oh my gosh, she was so captivating. I loved her story of how Montessori came into her life. And, we touched on, what makes a primary child, but also, really how to support your 3 to 6 year old child right now, because, the 3 to 6 year old child, they are pretty needy. They're definitely independent, but they want to be around you. They definitely require, a lot more support, I would say, than an elementary child. Oh gosh, she just had great insight, and it's such a great interview. So lucky we got to talk with her.
Yeah, it was really practical and really thoughtful. And I appreciated how she encouraged all of us who are home with children of this age, as challenging as it can be on so many different levels, to also really treasure this time that we get to, experience with those young developing minds. It's just it's a precious time, even though it's hard, with all we're dealing with right now. So I hope that people really enjoy Nia. We didn't talk about nearly enough with her, so we may have to have her back again.
We definitely do. We could have talked for like 5 hours. Oh my gosh, it was such an awesome conversation. But yeah, it was, she really, she brought that point home that, this time it's going to be over, sooner rather than we think, probably. And, this family time it's definitely challenging, of course, but it has its amazing moments and opportunities. And we really touch on that. So we hope you guys enjoy. And there's information about Nia in the description of this episode. So go ahead and you can read about her, and she's just fascinating, and we hope you enjoy.
Yeah, have a great time listening. Well, we are delighted today to have AMI primary trainer Nia Seale with us. Nia directs courses in Nigeria and South Africa, and is here to share some wisdom and knowledge about primary children, since we get stuck talking about elementary children all the time. So welcome, Nia. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yay. Yeah, we're so excited to expand our primary knowledge, because we really do get stuck in elementary land. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here.
So Nia, one thing we always do when we have guests on, we ask them about their Montessori story. Everybody has a unique path to Montessori. So could you share yours with us?
Absolutely. I'm happy to. Interestingly enough, my story began, I always say with a question. When my son was 3 years old, I was at an outdoor gathering at a park, and I met Waduda Henderson, who some of you may know. May she rest in peace. And she was engaging with my son, as Waduda normally would, he was 3 years old. And she came to me and said, have you ever thought about Montessori? And I said, well, what is Montessori? And that question, when I look back, that question really opened up a whole world for me, because by asking, she actually didn't give me a long spiel. She just invited me to come and observe in her classroom, and then I was just amazed, and I had more questions. And so they didn't have space in that school, and it was a public school at the time, and we weren't able to. My son wouldn't be able to go to that school, but she recommended another school for me to visit, Marsh Montessori School. And I went to observe there, and I was just amazed at all of these young these 3, 4, and 5-year-olds just moving about their day, and an adult was over in the corner somewhere sitting down, and I was just amazed, and I said, this is it. But I eventually I became involved in the school as a parent volunteer, and then my son was 3 years old, and when he started, and he had been home all of that time, just the two of us, and both of us had separation anxiety. So he had a hard time adjusting. I had a hard time adjusting. And I think they were saying, Mrs. Marsh and the others, that, maybe we should get her involved somehow or something, because I don't know, we're just having just a hard time. But I eventually became just volunteering and helping around the school. And then she and another teacher there, Lila Ross, and Masunya Lokindo, who was practice teaching at the time, they, at lunch one day, they said, have you ever thought about Montessori training? And I said, well, tell me more about that. And then I eventually, I took the training in Ohio. At the time, there was a training, a summer training in Ohio, and I'm originally from Ohio. So it worked out really well that I could go in the summers and train. And I was fortunate enough to have Joan Bettman as my trainer. Yes, and I am just convinced that her love and passion for children and for this work resonated with me on the training in a way that affected in a very profound way how I approached my work with children. Even though I started out and didn't know what I was doing, essentially, the spirit of it, I think, is something that kept me very grounded. I really learned that from her in a very powerful way. And I think that's what led me to, I think, even continue and to go on to be a trainer. I think was from that foundation that she laid.
Wow.
And
wow.
I want to say, let's just take a moment and really honor Joan and her work and her memory. She died about 10 days ago after a long and beautifully, gracefully handled illness. And
Indeed.
She had that energy and that, connection to the child and that deep, abiding faith in children that it was, it was everywhere around her all the time. I didn't train with her, but I can imagine that if you took your training with her, I mean, that just had to cloak you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Through and through.
So you trained and then you taught in the DC area, right?
I did. I was at Crossway for a brief period of time, and at Aiden Montessori School for a term. I was actually I never had my own classroom at Aiden. I was the school sub because they had teachers who had been there, who had been teaching since I was born, and they had this reputation for having teachers that who had such longevity there. It was great. But I got a lot of experience there, just as in the office and giving tours and subbing classes whenever, just about every week, But then I eventually moved on. The family moved to Virginia, and I ended up working at a wonderful school in Virginia called Montessori School of Oakton, and I met Carolyn Link, who's the head of school there, and I just could not have been more fortunate to have been in that space with those children and those families, and that there's other teachers, and with Carolyn. It was a wonderful, beautiful experience for I think 7 years I was there. Yeah. Before another question came, actually, interestingly enough, I will say, I was at, there was a summit in the fall of, I think, 2012.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
And I attended the summit, and at that summit, I had two separate conversations with Joan and with Waduda, believe it or not. And they both asked me if I thought about becoming a trainer. And I had never thought about it at that point.
Mm.
And I said to Joan, I said, oh gosh, I mean, I thought about maybe I do, that's something I might even think about maybe when I'm older or something. It's like, I can't even think about that. And she was like, well, hello, aren't you there? And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's true, I am. And actually Waduda made the connection with Janet and she introduced me to Janet and said, I think you all should talk. And
Wow.
then, yeah, it was very interesting. And I just applied and just took it one step at a time. And I happened to be at a place where I could take the time and space to train. And that was really the only opening. When I look back, that opening would not be available now. And my daughter was finishing. She was at school with me. She was a student at Montessori School of Oakton, and she was at the end of her 6th year. So it worked out that we all moved to Maryland, and I was able to start training, to become a trainer with Janet McDonald and Jennifer Shields. So that was an awesome.
And now you're directing courses around the world and helping bring more teachers to this work. It's super amazing.
That's quite a journey. It seems like you had two people looking out for you the whole time. They were just carving the path for you. That's pretty amazing.
Yes, I think of it as Montessori finding me. I didn't find Montessori. It definitely found me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about primary children, since Jamie and I mostly talk about, the reasoning mind and group work and all those things that really aren't happening in primary as much. So I don't know, what are your top things to describe a primary child?
I would say primary children are absolutely amazing individuals. They're like a different species altogether. They really are. Although they have a small body, they're kind of like, some people think of them as miniature adults. They don't have the type of mind, that an adult has. They are, they have what we call an absorbent mind, where they're able to take in without any effort, without any work, without any struggle. They take in their environment in its totality in a way that adults no longer can do. They take in, the good and the bad, the subtle, the profound. They take in everything. They take in all the little nuances and, very, the obvious, as well as the subtle, without any effort. And they're doing this in an effort to develop themselves. They are right now laying the foundation for who they are, who are they going to become. And so, in a sense, the expression, the future is now, with the primary child, that's definitely the case. The future is now. And it has lots of implications for us as adults. And that's something that we continue to study and to think about, because we're in our adult mind. We don't really think about life from the perspective of a child, of a 3, a 6-year-old child. But that's definitely our work, is to be able to understand children in this plane of development, and so that we can support them to develop to their absolute fullest potential.
And it does, it lays the foundation for the child all the way through to adulthood, but it's so critical to our work as elementary practitioners, the child's experience under the age of 6.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We value all that hard work.
Oh, yeah.
Adults.
Yes. And another thing that's different, the other thing that and that I love is that they are in the present moment. They live in the present moment. And, as adults, we take mindfulness classes, to learn how to be in the present moment, right? It's a discipline that we have to develop. But they are just in the here and now. And so that's a gift in so many respects, particularly in these times, actually, but they are, and that's a part of their ability, it's by design, and it's part of their ability to take in everything, is that, they have to be in the present moment in order to really be able to do that, but it has implications for us, as adults and parents, as teachers, guides, parents, to understand that, because we keep thinking that, children should operate in a way that, perhaps, in terms of thinking of the future or the past, they're not able to do that. And so, I think it's important for us I think it's great that in taking this training that I learned so much about children in this plan of development, but it's something that as a society, we all need to learn and to understand,
Right. Because it's, at that age, you can't, if you ask a child why they did something, they don't,
right.
They don't know. They weren't, because they're living in the moment. It's not like they had a master plan.
Exactly.
They weren't thinking through the consequences.
No, absolutely not. Right. Exactly. And that's something that I think, kind of switching over to parents, thinking about parents, we have, we work with parents consistently, in terms of just helping them to understand what we do and understand their, they know of their children, of course, but to understand ways to support their development. And, the idea of this, being, they're not understanding, they may not necessarily understand the best way to support their children. They love them, they want what's best for them, right? But this is a time, I think right now, particularly now that parents are home with children, and they are now just not only the primary caregivers, they are with them all day. And so what happens? Are they becoming their teachers as well, right? And so how does that work, right? But for this first playing child, it's important, I think it's important to support parents. The way to support children in this plan of development is to support parents and to help. This is an opportunity, actually, to help parents understand their children in a way that perhaps they did not before, an opportunity to go deeper with parents and to take our partnership with parents to another level.
So jumping into us all being at home right now, like what specific tips, I completely agree with you that supporting the parent is number one right now, because they're the ones pretty much running the show at home. So, do you have any tips for parents that might have either one or a couple primary age children at this time?
Well, first, as I was saying, first and foremost, I think helping them to understand who their children are and what they need from the perspective of where they are developmentally, right? And so what although they're not quote unquote in school, what they don't need are worksheets.
Right.
They don't need to kind of do at home exactly what they were doing in schools, right? So I think it's important for them to understand that that they're not. This is, not that's not necessary. That's not the purpose of this time. It's really about supporting what we call, and helping them to understand that, education is not Montessori is not a curriculum. It's an aid to life, right? So how is it that you can, in the context of your home and your living, support these children in particular? And, one of the most important things that kind of jumps out, first and foremost with me is the sense of order, right? Is understanding their need for order and making sure that to the degree that you can, that you have, for example, if you maintain a regular schedule, that the child's sense of order has been disrupted, right? Because they're used to going to school every day and coming home and that routine. And so it's important to say, okay, establish this new routine and establish that, right? Now, one of the wonderful things about this child in this plane of development is that although they love going to school, they're being home with parents is something that they actually love. Being with their parents,
right?
They're not necessarily at the elementary age where they're moving to the place of saying, "Oh my gosh, I have to be in here with them." Oh my gosh, no, they love being with you. So there's a lot of onus on parents right now but it's an opportunity to live their life fully with children, right? To kind of lean into this, right? Expand, and for us to help and give parents some tools and some ideas of ways that they can do that. Like if they're worried about reading, writing, arithmetic, okay, let's look at ways that you can support your children right in your own home, right? When you look at the practical life, exercises, the practical life exercises are essentially ways that we take everyday life experiences, right, that the children have and are used to, and we use them for other purposes. But we have washing and ironing and food preparation and sewing and all sorts of things that you can do that have to do with this, what we call these practical life experiences that the parents, can understand that this is helping their child to develop, right? They need to move. They need to be able to perform certain activities in order to continue to develop. And so this is really helping. And so I think to the degree to that they can understand that, I think that that will serve, children, particularly in this time. And then, there's kind of lots of things. I think about, communication and language and how important it is right now for this child in this plane of development, that this child that is, adapting to their culture, right, to their world, to their time and place, and they benefit from and actually just are craving, communication and learning more about, the nuances and absorbing how we communicate, and we know they are communicating incessantly all the time, and so but there's an opportunity for us to really expand what it is that they already have come to know, right? We can thinking about how we communicate. We're at home, we're, comfortable, casual, kind of somewhat maybe, but let's talk about the importance of diction and speaking clearly and speaking, using rich vocabulary. Yes, and this is a way that you can really support your child's learning and development. When you when you just think about the kitchen, children, anything related to food,
right?
You've got them, right? Yeah. They will help. you can have a whole, what you might think of, parent might think of as a curriculum just in the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's about helping them develop this awareness. And now, that's tricky because some parents are at home and they're working as well, and it's tricky. But this is a situation, but I really see it as an opportunity.
It really is, isn't it? We
Yeah.
know how important a language-rich environment is for children
Mm-hmm.
under the age of 6, and we know that children need lots of exposure with that vocabulary development. And so, this time, while stressful in some ways when we're home, for parents can be that chance to talk to your child more than you usually get to do on an average day, and talk to
Right.
each other around your child, right? So because it's good for them to witness adult conversations.
Absolutely.
And all of that, and for children of this age, like, that's important academic development, right, Nia? Like,
Absolutely. This, they are, for like, when we think about children learning to read and to write, right? In order to read, right? Before reading, in order to write, you have to have something to say, right? So how do you have something to say? This idea of what we call spoken language is communication, right? Is, a language-rich environment sets the stage for the child to be able to have something to say when they write, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, that's another, and then that continues and develops into their ability to read, right? To be able to interpret somebody else's thoughts, right? So you're having a conversation. I'm listening to you. I'm doing active listening. I'm showing you that I'm hearing you, right? So I'm understanding what you're saying, and all of that is that foundation is laid just by really having a rich language environment at home.
Nia, if
Yeah.
children, as they're developing their language, if they say a word incorrectly, or have, the words out of order in what they say, we shouldn't do direct correction of that, right? What are some ways that we can help children without
Mm-hmm.
making them feel like, because we don't want them to not talk. We don't want them to
Right.
feel like they're going to
Right.
get picked apart.
Right.
What are some things parents can do to help reinforce some of the correct language without making the children
Mm-hmm.
feel attacked?
Yeah, they can absolutely do what we call kind of modeling. We would model by what we say, the correct, if you will, way to speak. So first of all, we speak in the way we speak, grammatically correct sentences and things like that. And then if the child, might say, "Oh, I slept for a long time last night," and I was like, "Oh, you did sleep for a long time last night. You slept a long time." So you're not correcting by saying, "No, you have to say, this is how we say it." You just respond that in one way. You're saying, "I heard you," right? By acknowledging it, and then but then what you do is you can say it in a way that you model. You're the model for speaking in a way that grammatically correct sentences. And then the thing is that in this way, it takes a little bit longer, right? So it's not, something that the child may pick up on right away, but they will, in the same way that they've learned to speak, they will just through, and also they're absorbing, they're in the absorbent mind, they're absorbing the way that you speak, and they eventually, they will get it. And the other thing is that, we want to avoid if at all possible, correcting. It is possible. Just avoid correcting. Right? Yes. But this is, again, for, there's so many little kind of ways that we need to connect with parents to help them to understand that, right?
Mhm.
Right. Because
Yeah.
as cute as some of the things they say are, we do want to help their language develop. So we don't need to like reinforce those. So like I remember with my older daughter when her word for dog was "g." She'd see a "g." And we would say, "Oh yeah, you see a dog." There's a dog. We wouldn't
Right.
point out like, "Oh, there's a gut over there," right?
Right.
We would acknowledge that she was using a word as a communication tool, but then also keep saying it, the way the rest of the world would understand it.
Exactly.
Until she finally, she's 19 now. She doesn't say "g" anymore.
Right.
Well, that's
did
good.
learn.
Right.
They will learn.
Happen.
And that makes me think too, with the practical life you were talking about, like that's such an opportunity at home right now. Yeah, it takes a lot longer, but children love to do that work with parents or have their work to do alongside.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
And while they're eager and excited, as opposed to, the kids that go off to college now having never done their own laundry or washed their own dishes. And when you start when they're 3 or 4, not only is it important for their development, but it also has really practical consequences. Like they can be more independent as adults.
Independent. Absolutely. This is the time to take advantage of that, because there's going to come a time when they're not going to want to do any of it.
Oh, right. Yes.
Right. But yeah.
Yeah. So those are some valuable tips for parents right now.
Yeah, I think just to touch on that a little bit more, I think parents or a society kind of practical life isn't seen as real work in my experience, right? It's like, oh, we have to do the academics, we have to do the writing work, we have to blah, blah, blah. But you got what you were saying, those skills, those life skills, cleaning, washing, anything, you name it, from that section of the classroom, that's so valuable. And that is
absolutely.
Real. And you're
absolutely.
Right. I just find that it's sort of, forgotten about or discounted. Like, oh, well, I've heard like, oh, my child, like they folded some clothes today, but like, are they even learning anything? It's like, yes, they definitely are,
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then there's other things, like, for example, we think about what we call the sensorial area, really, right? Which are, it's essentially, exercises that are representations of the natural world, right? Right. So let's, you're at home, let's delve into this. Let's look at, again, in the kitchen, have groceries that you have, maybe fruits and vegetables, and you notice, oh, I can smell the scent of this orange, even though we haven't opened it, or, just noticing the textures and really taking in. The children at this age are sensorial learners. They're taking in everything, and there's so many opportunities to have to just expose the child and kind of heighten awareness and let them explore, really, because a lot of times they're really doing it on their own, but we might say, oh, we've got to put these groceries away, we've got to go and get on with this, and but there's ways to support everything that we do, really, in some way at home, counting, right? Oh gosh, today we brought these home, we had 13 oranges.
Yeah.
Today, how many are there today? Oh, it's only 8. Depending on the child, right? There we go. There's addition, there's subtraction. Oh, we've got 10 pieces of chicken on this platter. Oh, there's 4 of us. How many can each of us have? Will there be any left over?
Yeah.
Right. But have fun with them, play games, and what we don't, we forget so many of the exercises that we have. They're games, right? A game. The stamp game is a game, right?
Yeah.
games, sensorial extent, they're games, right? So play with them, have fun with them, enjoy this time. This is a precious, we're going to look back on this time, and really, I think, to see how precious this time has been. I mean, it's been a lot of things, right? But
Yes.
it's also, I really try to look at this as in as positive a way as possible. And when I look at it, from a certain lens, it's like, this is actually a great opportunity to be with your family. I mean, I'm loving, my 2 older daughters are here with us, and I just feel so complete when my children are here, and so, it can be a wonderful bonding time. And, let's just think about, I think for us as educators, think about ways to continue this, this partnership. But there's been a shift in our relationship, right, with parents and, educators. But think about it. I think it's an opportunity. We have a captive audience now. I think a lot of parents are a lot more appreciative of what we do. I think they are open,
Yes.
they kind of understand a little bit, and they have a context, actually, for what we've been sharing. In the past, they really haven't had much of a context, because they haven't been in the environment. They don't really get it. But, for us, for anything that we do, what we offer to children, we give them some kind of context first before, right? We just don't do anything that's abstract, right? We give them a context for what it is that we want to offer. And so they have a context now, I think, in a way that we can,
Yeah. So maintaining that relationship with the parents and giving them some of these tips and tools is super helpful as teachers right now, helping parents. But as far as the academic losses that people are worried about, there's a lot of ways we can just integrate some of that into our daily lives at home, right? Like counting the oranges.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
And all that practical life work, because it is, that you have to start at a certain point and you have to take logical steps to get to the ending point of whatever activity you're doing, folding the laundry, washing the dishes. That's all like logical sequencing that the children are learning, which is essential for their math development as well, right? So
precisely,
that is like a really clear way for them to understand how to logically accomplish something, which translates directly to their math work. So it will benefit them, all that work around the house.
It will. It lays a foundation for them in a way that parents may not understand, because when we learned math traditionally, we learn it, in a very abstract way, right? But this all of what you described and more, that lays the foundation for them to really have a context again for sets, the idea of sets in math. I remember, that's one of, a lot of times in these chapters in math, at first they always talk about this unit on sets, and that was something I never really, believe it or not, it was just, I didn't really get. I was like, what is this for? Why are we doing? But it's like, when you look at life, right, and you think about this idea of sets and how it presents itself in many ways, it helps when they have a context for it, they can appreciate it, fractions, all of that is laying the foundation for work that's going to come, and then just being grounded as an individual, right, being grounded as a child, as in their world, is the best gift that parents can give them, and exposing them to as much as possible of their world, with them, as you go out for walks, right? It's kind of like a different walk than you may have, had before. There's opportunities all along the way, right? To do, to look at, kind of science-related things, if you will, and all sorts of things in nature, again, that we can appreciate and take advantage of as children.
And this is see a lot more families walking in
outside.
front of my house
Oh,
than
nice.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of how it was years ago when
Yeah,
I was growing up. When you
when
come
people
home
were
and
out.
children are playing
Yeah,
out home,
yeah.
riding bikes, I'm like, this is like it was back in the
Right?
well,
It's like,
back in
it's
the
the
day. I'm not
best. And,
gonna say.
you know, there was this 3-year-old boy sat out in our front yard earlier today and played with sticks, right?
Oh,
And his sweet mom waited, even though he was in
Yes,
somebody else's yard, and she
yes,
probably wanted to get a little exercise, you know, or
right.
whatever, but like just waited and watched. And I think
right.
that's, you know, that's the, I remember that feeling of impatience as a parent when
Yeah.
but I just highly encourage parents to be patient, let them stop and play with some sticks or look at the ant or whatever they're going to do, because it was delightful to watch. I just stood and watched out my window.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I think any of those real experiences, just like you're talking about, especially, and I think it's a great thing to just go on walks, go outside, observe, touch the grass.
Yes.
You know, if it's raining, go
Mm-hmm.
jump in a puddle. I don't know.
Right, right, right. And
All
then,
of
and then, yeah, and explore,
that.
and wonder with them, right? So, we've got, especially in some of these, I mean, you go out for a walk and you might see, we see birds. It's just, they're prolific, in this area. And,
Mhm.
I wonder what kind of bird that is, right? If you know, then maybe, it's a red-headed woodpecker. Can you hear it? Right? Or just, there's apps now, there's Google, you can just, research and learn a little bit about the birds, right, in your area. And say, I wonder, let's take a picture of that. Maybe we can go back and find out what that is. And then learn a little about it, read a little about it, right? Right? So there's so much that we can take advantage of now. And now, and I'm sure these are some things that, we may have shared with parents that they could do, but, now we have such a gift of time right now that I think this is a time where they maybe have more time also, to be able to explore.
Yeah, and Nia, I love how you're sort of switching the narrative to what a gift this time is, rather than this is so stressful. Because I think
Absolutely.
all of us are feeling that too right now, but sort of switching that narrative in your mind and with your children, or if you're teaching right now, what can we do with this time? That's such a
Absolutely.
great way to look at it,
Thank you. Absolutely. And the other thing is that, these children are absorbing everything, and they're absorbing the stress, right?
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
have to be mindful of that, right? They're absorbing that as well, right? And so we, the responsibility is on us even greater, right? The more we understand, and I think the more parents, and caregivers understand that that the importance of, and the totality of, the way that the children are taking in this, our environment. Our environment is all of it, right? It's the physical, it's it's that spoken and unspoken, right? It's the feeling and all of that. So yeah, it's important to keep to keep that in mind.
Right. Try to keep ourselves calm for the children, try to help.
Yeah.
They're going to follow our lead on this. So and especially children under the age of 6
Oh yeah.
Right.
don't really understand. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
and they don't recognize the passage of time in the same way either. So it can
No.
be 3 days or it can be a month, and they don't quite have that
Yeah.
awareness. So even though the rest of us are getting a little tired of this,
Yeah, they're just living.
Right.
living their
Every day's
life.
a new day. Every day's a new day. It's like, okay, they're waking up. Okay, I'm ready for the day.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Well, Nia, thank you so much for taking some time
Oh.
and sharing some wisdom with us. And we're excited for all the work. Although I assume you're not traveling for your courses right now.
Right.
I am not traveling. I
Aw.
am learning to offer these courses online. That's what I will
Oh,
be
wow.
doing. Yeah. Well,
Which-
at least the course in Lagos right now, we've decided that
Mm.
we're going to do it online. We haven't made a decision yet on South Africa. We were hoping that we could travel in September, but
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I
Yeah.
don't know. And
We don't
it's
know.
so exciting that Montessori training is getting to all these places. These are the first
Mhm.
It is.
courses, right? The first courses
Yes.
in both those countries.
It's amazing.
Yes, first courses. Very exciting. Very exciting
Yeah.
work.
Well, thank you
Very
so
rewarding.
much for your hard work on that.
Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for this time. I enjoyed the conversation.
Well,
Us
it was
too.
Great
fast.
seeing you.
Great.
All right.